Welcome to another video on facilitating enlightenment. Here we'll talk in more detail about the belief, action, thoughts, emotions model. So before we go further, it's important to understand exactly what enlightenment is. And we've talked about this in our other videos also. Essentially, enlightenment is this deep level realization, not just at the intellectual level, not just at the emotional level, but at every level, that there is no you, there is no self that is separate from the rest of consciousness. So we are made up of consciousness, but we are just not aware of this if we are focused in this reality. It's almost like uh, you are floating in an ocean and you have your own container and you're still full of the ocean water, which is consciousness, but you have the container and you fixate on the container, which is like your body and your mind uh, and everything that makes you up, your ego. So this reality that we make up, we have the sense of self that is separate from others, that is separate from everything else. We have a notion of space and time and of the self existing in a space and journeying through time. We have a notion of good and bad, of evaluating things, of deciding what is a threat, what is an opportunity, what is good, what is bad. So we classify everything, and we have a sense of our self-importance, which is again coming from our ego. So enlightenment is the deep level realization that all of this is an illusion, that it's not real, and there really is no you. So today we're going to talk about a model that we use to make up our reality and how we can use this model in order to facilitate enlightenment. So the model we're going to look at is what I like to call the bait model, and it starts with our beliefs, which is something that we choose, and then our beliefs drive our thoughts and or our actions, and then our actions and our thoughts in turn determine our emotions, because we are, after all, emotional creatures. Now, the emotions that we feel can feed back and make us change our beliefs. And also at the same time, of course, we don't live in a vacuum, so we have other people's actions and words and emotions that can also help alter our beliefs. So beliefs form the cognitive portion of our mindset, and they are the things that form the foundation of our particular illusion of reality. It's important to understand that we can choose beliefs voluntarily, and we start adopting these beliefs as soon as we are born, and we start layering them on top of each other. And our particular illusion of reality is actually based on the beliefs that we choose. So what exactly are beliefs? Beliefs consist of two things. The first is the sense of things being separate from other things. So the things could be events, they could be people, they could be living things, they could be dead things, they could be planets. So the fact that, or not the fact, but the assertion that these are separate from each other is one portion of our beliefs. And the other is, once we have these things that are separate from each other, then how do these things go about changing their state? So for example, how does a planet change its state, or how does a house change its state, or how does a human change its state from, let's say, happiness to unhappiness or whatever. So that would be the next part of our belief. And then another part of that is, how do these things interact with each other, the cause-effect relationship, so to speak. So if I yell at someone, then they will get angry. Uh, that is this second part of our beliefs. So in the Western science tradition, the first part, where we create things that are separate from each other, is called ontology. And the second part, where we look at the interaction of these things and the cause-effect nature of the reality we are constructing, that's called epistemology. So why do we say that these beliefs are not absolute and that we can change our beliefs at any time? So the important thing is to remember that our reality is really just an illusion. So if that is so, and each of us is making up our own illusions, then how can any beliefs that are foundational in one illusion be more correct than another set of beliefs that are foundational in another illusion? So since they're all just making up illusions, we can change our beliefs at any point in time. So having talked about beliefs, the next thing we'll look at is our thoughts and actions. So thinking about thoughts, um, a thought is different from a belief. It is caused by our multitude of beliefs, but a thought is something that happens in a mind. It's a simulation of sensory experience. So if you think about the five senses that we have, that we are aware of, right, like seeing or touching, hearing, smelling. Uh, so all of these senses, a simulation of what we would experience happening in our mind is a thought. So a thought is a result of one or more beliefs, and it's really an enactment of a sensory event, which will involve some. So it's basically a simulation. So if you think about a definition of a thought, it's an imagining or a conceptualization of actions or events that involve things. So you can visualize, for example, that let's say if you believe that immigrants are inherently there to make the society worse, then your thoughts may involve visualizing, which is your sensory input there, immigrants who are moving into neighborhoods and assaulting the residents and so on. So this would be a thought. It would be different from a belief which caused the thought. Now the other thing we want to keep in mind is that our thoughts that we have to be in sync with our beliefs. We are not going to have thoughts that contradict our beliefs. They have to be in sync, otherwise there will be cognitive dissonance. So either our beliefs change and then our thoughts will change. But once our beliefs are, we have a certain set of beliefs, then our thoughts and actions are going to mirror those beliefs or at least be in conformance with those beliefs. Okay, so looking at actions, an action is essentially a physical manifestation of our thoughts, or it could be of instincts, which we think of as something happening without us thinking. So it's an enactment in the physical world that involves one or more things. So any action that we do, it's important to note that whatever we do as an action in this made-up reality occurred as a thought or instinct first in our mental makeup. So a quick recap, we have our beliefs that we choose voluntarily that create the foundation for our illusion, our reality. And these beliefs lead to thoughts and or actions. And now these actions in turn affect our emotions. So let's take a look next at what are emotions. So emotions are a particularly tricky topic. And the first thing we want to talk about is that the root emotion is love. And all of our emotions, whether it's hate or anger or rage or jealousy or joy, all of them stem from this one root emotion, which is love. And when we say love, what exactly are we talking about? We're talking about love for God, love for the divinity that we are all made up of. That is basically uh, the purest root emotion. If you look at many different systems of philosophy or religion, they will talk about how there's nothing but love, that we have the capacity to love. So all of these things basically imply that love is the root emotion, and it is really, in a sense, what makes us human. When we manifest love in its purest form towards another thing, then in this reality we also call it unconditional love. Uh, so our thoughts and actions cause us to manifest different emotions, but again, keep in mind that these are nothing but just different shades of love. So, but we have negative emotions and we have positive emotions, right? So the thoughts that are ego enhancing, that emphasize a sense of separateness from other things, these thoughts will result in emotions that we widely consider to be more negative. So, for example, if you think that uh, you are in a competition with other people who are obviously separate from you and you need to win at all costs, then that is going to, then that thought, I mean, that's actually a belief, but then that could lead to thoughts where you visualize competing with other people and winning and making more money than them. And ultimately, the emotions that you feel might be jealousy, there might be rage, there might be vindictiveness, and we would term these more negative. But it's important to think about uh, how these are nothing but manifestations of love, because you're not going to feel emotion if you don't care, and care is love, right? If you have beliefs that reduce your ego, and then subsequently you have thoughts and actions that reflect these beliefs and also reduce your ego, then these will be thoughts and actions that emphasize the unity between things. And these in turn are going to lead to more positive emotions, again, in the most positive form being unconditional love. So, for example, if there's a missionary who goes from, let's say, Poland to, let's say, Calcutta and takes care of lepers, uh, these are ego de emphasizing actions. So, the belief that might guide them might be that people need to be helped and everyone is a child of God. And then the actions that they take are ego reducing, because what are they doing? They are taking care of lepers on a street in a third world country, something that nobody else will do. And that doesn't cause them any kind of ego enhancement at all. And then the emotions that they feel at that point are probably close to unconditional love. So if you think about the common negative emotions, here are some that are listed out here. So it's important to watch these carefully, watch how we are feeling carefully, and use that as a measuring stick for uh, how much we are letting our ego take over our life. And again, there's nothing good or bad about this, but if you're focusing a lot on your ego, then you will feel these negative emotions, right? If you look, for example, in some religions, they have this concept of the seven deadly sins, and these, if you think about them, like they are listed here, you can see that some of these are thoughts, some of these are actions, and some of these are actually emotions. So it's all kind of mixed up a little bit. But again, the important thing here is to try and watch our emotions carefully and use them as a symptom or a measure of how much ego we are letting, uh, or how big we are letting our ego get. So once we have identified so-called negative emotions that we may be experiencing, how do we go about reducing our ego? So we work backwards and try and figure out which beliefs are driving the thoughts and actions that are causing these emotions, and then we can work to changing these beliefs. So this may sound a little bit Freudian in its approach in terms of analyzing, but this is what the bait model would do. So here's an example where, let's say you have a lot of hatred and antipathy towards the people at work, right? And you have visualizations of people gossiping about you. Uh, you are giving out negative vibes to the people there. So these are thoughts and actions that have resulted from some belief. So if you trace back, you might see that you have a belief that people at work are out to get you. So once you alter this belief, you change this belief that people at work are no longer out to get you, but they're just living their life just like you are. And really, we are all just part of the same consciousness. Then your new actions and thoughts would be positive vibes and actions towards your colleagues, your work colleagues. You will stop expecting too much from them. You will stop expecting praise from them, for example, or any kind of recognition from them. Uh, and then your new emotion might be a feeling of empathy towards the people at work and a feeling of satisfaction when you go to work. So, a quick review of the BAIT model that we have done so far. We've talked about our beliefs that drive our thoughts and our actions, which in turn drive our emotions. So now we're going to look at these two arrows here. One is the feedback loop that goes from our emotions back to our beliefs, and the other is other people's actions, words, and emotions that can also change our beliefs. So how do our beliefs change? So of course our beliefs can change voluntarily at any time that we choose to, just and that's called free will, right? Uh, but we can also, our beliefs may change based on the emotions that we feel. They may alter our beliefs. And also what other people do. So for example, let's say Rob is driving home from work, his car breaks down, an immigrant pulls up and helps him with his car, waits with him till a tow truck arrives. So given this action, his beliefs, Rob's beliefs change. And once your beliefs change, then your actions and your thoughts start to change also. And then finally, the emotions that you experience will also change. Now, just as an aside, in psychopaths, the influence link between other people's emotions and actions and the psychopath's belief is very weak. Whereas in empaths, this link is very strong. In other words, empaths are really affected, their beliefs are really affected by other people's emotions and or actions. And often you'll see in empaths that as they grow older, they may create a shell around themselves to protect themselves by consciously negating the strength of this link. And so actually they may appear to be the opposite and maybe unfeeling and unsympathetic, but actually they are, they have a heart of gold. It's just the gruff exterior. So let's look at ways that we can actually sublimate our ego using the bait model. So the first thing we could do is to use our beliefs. So we can consciously change our beliefs and adopt beliefs that result in ego reducing emotions. So look at our emotions and then go back and change our beliefs so that we are mostly experiencing pure unconditional love to the extent possible, right? The next one is to actually suspend the bait model completely, because that is how we make up a illusory reality. And if we meditate, for example, we suspend our beliefs, our thoughts, and our actions and just exist and become aware of the divinity that makes us. So that's another way to use the bait model to reduce our sense of self. And finally, also through our actions, we can sublimate our ego. So if we serve others from whom we have the greatest separation, so we may feel distant towards them. In other words, we may believe that we are distant from them. Uh, they may actually believe that they are distant from you, and through their actions, they may affect your beliefs. So if you start serving them without thinking of reward, then you're going to have to change your beliefs in order to do this action successfully, because your actions and your thoughts cannot be uh, out of sync with your beliefs. So this is another way to uh, change your beliefs so that you are again feeling unconditional love. And here are two other ways that we can reduce our sense of self. The first is to be aware of what's going on, but not pass judgment on anything, whether any of the events that are happening around us or any of the emotions that may be going on inside us or around us. So here's an example. John is popular with the girls. I observed that. Uh, I believe that he is a liar and that is why they like him. Uh, so again, this is judgmental. So our beliefs that have a lot of judgment in them, if we reduce those, then we would increase our sense of awareness, uh, uh, and that will reduce our sense of self, but still keep our sense of awareness. And finally, you don't want to take yourself too seriously. You know, for example, the belief that the purpose of my life is to achieve enlightenment. Think about how self-absorbed this belief is and how judgmental, because you are now assuming that people who haven't achieved enlightenment are failures and may need to come back in other lives and so on. So again, try to be aware without being judgmental in our beliefs. So one of the big takeaways from this presentation is that uh, our beliefs are not really permanent and can be changed. And once we change our beliefs, then our emotions will change. Uh, so watch our emotions carefully. If they are If we are feeling negative emotions, then we need to change our beliefs so that we start feeling more positive emotions. So it's important just to remind ourselves as to what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is just a deep awareness of the real us, the real divinity in us, stripped of all beliefs, thoughts, actions, and emotions. A deep level awareness that there is no you. There are no beliefs, there are no thoughts, there are no actions, there are no emotions. So this deep level awareness that we call enlightenment may happen. And the point of this bait model is to try and create conditions so that it happens. But when it happens, it'll be a spontaneous accident. And again, if it does happen, then we can experience it, enjoy it, and then come back to our current illusion and continue to play the game and live the illusion. Uh, but whether or not it happens should not really matter. Whether we are aware of our inner divinity at all times, our connection with everything or not, it doesn't make us any better or worse if we are aware of our true selves. We create our own experiences in this world. We create our own made up reality. And when we die, it's important to remember that these experiences, they were just a product of our bait model, and they never really existed, and neither did we.